Hey guys, before we get started, I wanted to share some exciting news and let you know that the Lacy Day Beanie pattern is now available for free over on my knitting blog, griswoldknits.com. There you will find this hat as well as many others. You will find full written patterns, tutorials, stitch tutorials, all kinds of things. So if this interests you, go check it out. All right, let's get started. Okay, so like I said, you can go check out my blog for all the details, or you can continue watching here, and I'm going to share with you all the things you need for this project. So I am using Line Brand number 4 medium worsted weight yarn in the color Redwood. You can use any medium worsted weight yarn you would like, so just grab what you have and you're good to go. You will need a pair of 4.5 millimeter 16-inch circular knitting needles, as well as 5 millimeter 16-inch circular knitting needles. You will need scissors, tape measure, a stitch marker, a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends, and a cable needle. So once you have all of your supplies gathered, come back here and I will show you what to do. Using your smaller 4.5 millimeter 16-inch circular knitting needles, you are going to cast on 96 stitches and join in the round, which I've already done for sake of saving time. And feel free to refer to the pattern on my blog, but there are two options. You can do a single brim or a double brim. Today I'm going to be knitting not a double brim, a folded brim, which is what I'm doing here. It's going to be a 2x2 brim. So we are going to knit 2, 1, 2, and then purl 2. One, 2. And that's it. It's a simple 2x2 brim. So if you want to do a single brim, you are going to continue knitting 2, purling 2 for 12 rounds, and then you can move on to the body of your hat. If you want to do a folded brim like me, you're going to continue working in the round, knitting 2, purling 2 until your hat, the brim of your hat, measures 4 inches from the cast on edge to the top of the brim. So just depending on what you want to do, but either way, we're just going to continue working the 2x2 rib. So knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. So once you've finished with your brim, come back here and I will show you what to do next. So if you're working a folded brim like I am, you're going to want to knit until your brim measures 4 inches from the cast on edge to the top. So once your brim is complete, you need to switch to your larger 5 millimeter 16-inch circular knitting needles, and then you will be ready to begin the body of your hats. For round 1, we will knit 6, purl 2, work a cable 6 front, and purl 2, and you will repeat that all the way around until you make it back to your stitch marker. So to begin, we are going to knit the first 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this will be our lace portion. Then we will purl 2, 1, 2, and then we will work a cable 6 front. So this will be our cabled portion. So to work a C6 front, you are going to slip the first 3 stitches from your left hand needle onto your cabling needle, and then you will hold those stitches towards the front of your work. Next, you will knit 3 stitches from the left hand needle onto the right. 1, 2, 3. Then you will pick up your cabling needle Slide those stitches all the way down to the end of the cable and knit those 3 stitches from the cable needle onto your right hand needle. 1, 2, 3. And that is your first cable. You can't really see it yet. You can see the little twist here, but as you continue working, you're going to really see that cable start to build. And then we will purl 2. 1, 2. Okay, and that is it. You are going to repeat those steps until you make it all the way back to the stitch marker. And then I will show you what to do for round 2. So rounds 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16, so all of the even rounds are the exact same. We are going to knit 6 and purl 2 all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2. 1, 2. So just repeat knit 6, purl 2 until you make it back to the stitch marker, and I will meet you for round 3. Okay, so round 3 is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. So in round 3, we are going to begin working on our lacy mock cable detailing right here. And we are going to begin the round with a yarn over. And I just wanted to mention that before we begin. So for round 3, we are going to yarn over, knit 2, slip, slip, knit, knit 2, purl 2, knit 6, and purl 2. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do each and every step. So let's get started. Beginning with the yarn over, we'll take our working yarn and bring it towards the front of our work. Then we will knit the next 2 stitches. So when we go to knit, see our working yarn, that yarn over, it gets caught. See that? There's our yarn over, and it's going to get caught, and that's going to create that extra stitch. So we're going to knit 1, 2, okay, so now we have 3 stitches here on our right hand needle. Here's our yarn over, and since we have an extra stitch, we now need to decrease by 1 stitch. So we are going to work a slip slip knit, and to work a slip slip knit, you are going to go into the first 2 stitches knitwise as if to knit. So go into the first stitch here knitwise, but instead of knitting, we are going to slip it onto our right hand needle. And again with the next stitch, slip, and then you are going to place those 2 slipped stitches back onto your left hand needle, like so, and then you will knit those 2 slip stitches together through the back loop. So go in through the back loop of those 2 stitches, wrap your yarn and pull through. Oops. Just like that. And the slip slip knit is going to give us a left leaning decrease, and it's a little bit tricky to see right now, but there should be a slight left lean to your decrease stitch here. Okay, next we are going to knit 2, 1, 2, then we will purl 2, 1, 2. This is our lacy cable portion here, and now we are going to knit across this C6 front cable. So we will knit the next 6 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we will purl 2. 1, 2. Okay, for round 4, we are simply going to knit 6 and purl 2 all the way around. So I just wanted to point this out. In the prior row, we had our yarn over. We made a yarn over. So you're going to go into the yarn over just like you would any other stitch when you're knitting. So we are going to go into that yarn over just like it were a knit stitch. So we're going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we will bring our working yarn to the front and purl 2. 1, 2, and that is it. So that previous yarn over is what creates this kind of lacy gap that we have going here. So it's the yarn overs that are going to create those gaps in our work. And that's it. You're just going to repeat knit 6, purl 2 until you make it back to the stitch marker. For round 5, we are going to knit 1, yarn over, knit 2, slip, slip, knit, knit 1, purl 2, knit 6, and purl 2. I know that's a lot, but I'm going to break it down for you. Don't worry. So first we are going to start with a knit 1. So this is our mock lace portion. There's our lace gap. We're going to knit the first stitch. Now we are going to create another yarn over. So we're going to take our working yarn, bring it to the front of our work. We will go into the next stitch to knit, catching that yarn over as we go. Knit 1, knit 2, and because we added an extra stitch with the yarn over, now we need to decrease by 1 stitch. So we will slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the next stitch knitwise, place both of those slip stitches onto our left hand needle, and as you can see, my right hand needle is already in position through the back loop. So you could go ahead and just knit through the back loop, knit those 2 stitches together in one smooth motion if you want. Next we will knit 1, purl 2, 1, 2, then we will knit 6, knitting across that cable here, knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2. 1, 2, and that's it. Just repeat the instructions until you make it all the way back to the stitch marker. Okay, for round 6, we again are simply going to knit 6 and purl 2 all the way around. So go into that first stitch here and knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2, 1, 2. For round 7, we are going to knit 2, yarn over, knit 2, slip, slip, knit, purl 2, knit 6, and purl 2. Okay, starting with a knit 2, 1, 2, and then we will yarn over, so bring that working yarn to the front and knit the next 2 stitches, catching that yarn over as we go. 1, 2. Then we will slip, slip, knit. So go into that first stitch and slip it, and slip the next one. Place those stitches back onto the left hand needle and knit the 2 stitches together through the back loop. Then we will purl 2. 1, 2. Next, we will knit across our cable here and knit 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and lastly a purl 2. 1, 2. And just repeat those instructions until you make it back to the stitch marker. For round 8, this should look familiar by now. We are just going to knit 6 and purl 2 all the way around. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I will show you a little bit. We are going to knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2. 1, 2, and just repeat those instructions until you make it back to the stitch marker. Okay, here we are. We are on round 9. We are going to knit 6, purl 2, cable 6 front, and purl 2. So starting here at the lace cable section, we will knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we will purl 2, 1, 2. And now we are going to work a cable 6 front. So you're going to want to take your cabling needle, and just as we did before, we will slip the first 3 stitches onto our cabling needle and hold those stitches towards the front of our work. Then we will knit the next 3 stitches from the left hand needle onto the right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, then we take our cabling needle and slide those stitches all the way down so that we can knit those stitches from the cable needle onto our right hand needle. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and now we will purl 2. 1, 2. And so now you can really see our cable here starting to work up, and you're starting to see those gaps in our lacy cable. So just repeat the instructions in between the asterisks until you make it all the way back to stitch marker, and then I will show you round 10. Okay, round 10, it's another easy round. We are just going to knit 6 and purl 2 all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and now we will purl 2. 1, 2. So just repeat those steps until you make it back to your stitch marker. For round 11, we will knit 2 together, knit 2, YRN, which stands for yarn round needle, purl 2, knit 6, and purl 2. Don't worry if you don't know some of these abbreviations. I'm going to show you as we go. Okay, before we begin, I want to show you, if you look down here at our mock lace cable section, you can see this left-leaning section that we have here. Now this was created by our slip-slip knits. The slip-slip knits create this left-leaning decrease, and as you build up, it creates a left-leaning section. Now, as we decrease, we are going to use a knit two together, and that is going to give us a right lean. So the slip-slip knits create a left lean, and the knit two togethers create a right leaning slant. So you're going to start to see a zigzagging pattern begin to form as you work your mock cable up. I just wanted to point that out so that you are aware, and hopefully it'll help you keep track. Okay, so we are going to start by knitting 2 stitches. 1, 2, and next we will decrease by knitting these next 2 stitches together. So go into both stitches at the same time and knit them together. And again, this is going to give us this right leaning decrease. So maybe you can see that slight slant to the right. Now our cable is going to start zigzagging to the right. Then we will knit 2, 1, 2. Now, this is an interesting technique. So this is called a YRN, or yarn round needle. So whenever you have a yarn over following or preceding, I should say, a purl stitch, you need to work something called a yarn round over. So if you were to just yarn over and then purl the next stitch, you wouldn't be adding an extra stitch. It would just be setting up as if you were doing a regular purl. So in order to create a yarn over prior to a purl stitch, we need to yarn round needle. So bring that working yarn from the back towards the front. So that's a yarn over, but because the next stitch is a purl, we're going to wrap it around our right needle again, counterclockwise, like so. And now we can go into the next stitch and work the purl. 1, 2, purl 2. And you can see that that yarn round our needle, it caught and created an extra stitch, which is what we need. So that's a little technique that you can use when you have to do a yarn over before a purl. And now we will knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2. 1, 2. Okay, round 12 should be looking awfully familiar by now. We won't spend too much time on it again, but we are simply going to knit 6, purl 2 all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, purl 2, 2. That's it. Just repeat those instructions until you make it back to the stitch marker. For round 13, we will knit 1, knit 2 together, knit 2, yarn over, knit 1, purl 2, knit 6, and purl 2. So let's get started. We will knit 1, knit the next 2 stitches together, knit 2, 1, 2. Now we will yarn over, so bring that working yarn to the front, and then knit to the next stitch. Then purl 2, 1, 2. So that was our mock lace section. Now we are working on the cable section. We will knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2. 1, So just repeat those instructions until you make it all the way back to the stitch marker. Okay, round 14 is a knit 6, purl 2 round. So we are just going to repeat that all the way around until we make it back to the stitch marker. Start by knitting 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then bring your working yarn to the front and purl 2. 1, 2. When you're finished with this round, I will meet you for round 15. Okay, for round 15, we will knit 2 together, knit 2, yarn over, knit 2, purl 2, knit 6, purl 2. So let's get started. We are going to knit the first 2 stitches together. So go into both of those stitches and knit them together. Then we will knit 2, 1, 2, and we will yarn over and knit the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, then purl 2, 1, 2, knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then purl 2. 1, 2. Then just repeat that until you make it back to the stitch marker. Okay, this is round 16, which is the final round of the body of our pattern. So we are going to knit 6 and purl 2. That was 6. Now we are just going to purl 2. And just go ahead and repeat till you make it back to your stitch marker. So like I said, this is the final round of the body of the pattern. So you're just going to want to repeat rounds 1 through 16 until your hat measures 8.5 inches from the cast on edge if you are doing a single brim, or until it measures 10.5 inches from the cast on edge if you are doing a folded brim like I am. So you can end on rounds 4, 6, 10, 12, 14, or 16, and then begin your decrease. Okay, congratulations. We are on the first round of decrease. So once your hat is the length that you would like, it's time to begin decreasing. Okay, for the first round of our decrease, we are going to slip, slip, knit, knit 2 together, and purl 2. And at the end of the decrease round, you should have 72 stitches. So we'll start with that slip, slip, knit. We're going to go into that first stitch knitwise and slip into the second stitch, slip, place both of those stitches back onto our left-hand needle, and knit them together through the back loop. Next, we will knit 2, 1, 2, knit 2 together, purl 2, 1, 2. And I just want to show you something here. We started with a slip, slip, knit because that gives us a left leaning decrease. And then we did a knit 2 together on the opposite side of the cable. And so the cables are going to taper in together nicely and kind of come to a nice pointed end. So that's by design, just in case anybody was wondering. For round 2, it's very simple, straightforward. We will just knit 4 and purl 2 all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, purl 2, 1, 2, and just repeat until you make it all the way back to your stitch marker. And at some point as you are knitting, your stitches are going to become too tight, and so you will need to switch to a longer cord to use the magic loop method like I'm going to do, or switch to double pointed needles so that you can decrease your beanie. Okay, for round 3 of the decrease, you will slip slip knit, knit 2 together, and purl all the way around. So we'll just start with a slip slip knit, go into that first stitch knitwise and slip, slip, place the 2 stitches back onto your left hand needle and knit them together through the back loop, slip slip knit, giving us a left leaning decrease, and then knit 2 together, giving us a right leaning decrease, purl 2, and that is it. Repeat until you make it back to the stitch marker. Okay, for round 4, the final round of our decrease, we are going to knit 2 stitches together and purl 2 together all the way around. So start by knitting 2 together, and then purling 2 together. And just keep going until you make it all the way back to the stitch marker, and at the end you should have 24 stitches remaining. Knit 2 together, purl 2 together. Okay guys, we've finished our final round of decrease. All you have left to do is cinch your beanie and weave in the ends. All right, you guys, here she is in all of her glory, out in the wild. I hope that you guys enjoy this tutorial. No matter where you are, be well, and I will see you in the next one.
And of course you can't become if you only say what you would have done.